Hi, and happy Tuesday, and welcome to VA Careers Live. My name is Mike Owens, and I'm a human resources specialist with the Veterans Health Administration, as well as your host for our weekly segment, Talk About It Tuesday. If you're tuning in for the first time, I just want to let you know that we are here every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Time, so feel free to grab a snack, grab something to drink, and join us as we talk about careers here at VA. Now, whether you've been here for the whole 3 years or you're tuning in for the first time, as I just mentioned earlier, we want you to be part of the conversation. So feel free to hit that share button, get that information out. And we want to make sure that we get all this information out to as many people who wants to work here at VA. But also we have two hashtags that we have that are associated with this broadcast. That's hashtag work at VA. Again, hashtag work at VA and hashtag VA careers. So if you know someone who's interested in working at VA, hit that share button, send that information over to them, and hopefully they can enjoy this program just like you are. So with that, we're going to go into our broadcast for today. Today we're going to be talking about social work here at VA. I have a very special guest. This young lady that's coming on, she's originally from Florida. Then she migrated up to North Carolina, then over to Texas, realized, okay, maybe Texas, I want to go back to North Carolina. I'm just kidding. She's back in North Carolina, and she works for the VA's National Social Work Office, and she's the program manager for the VA's National Social Work Office. So without further ado, I want to bring to our program Ms. Jennifer Silver. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Awesome. I know in the intro I mentioned all of those states that you lived in, but I will not ask you what was your favorite state. So I don't want you to get those emails like, they got some people from that watch our broadcast that from all over. So I don't want you to pick a favorite on our program today. But I do want to say thank you for joining us today talking about social work. I know you're program manager for national office. So I know that you have a lot on your plate. So to take out 30 minutes of your time to spend with us, we really appreciate it here at Talk About It Tuesday.
Absolutely. It's an honor and privilege to be here. I love to talk about social work.
All right. And I know there's a lot of people out there that's listening today that loves to hear about social work because even someone like me, I get a lot of questions from external candidates that are interested about social work, and I know that people always want to know what are the credentials and the criteria I need to be a VA social worker. And I know we're going to get into that a little later on in the interview. But if you're out there and you're interested in social work, stay tuned. Even if you're not interested in social work, or maybe you don't know you're interested in social work yet, just stay tuned. And I'm sure Miss Silva is going to give you a lot of information today. So you ready, Miss Silva?
I'm ready. Let's do
All
it.
right. So obviously you work at VA. So tell us what first brought you here. What first brought you to VA?
That's a great question. I would say it was about midway through my career when I started hearing all about VA. VA social workers do everything. They do all kinds of different, unique, and exciting things. They do case management, they do discharge planning. If you need something to help your veteran, find a VA social worker. And I was working in a private hospital at the time, and I would see a lot of veterans come through. And I was working primarily in an emergency department. So I wasn't really sure how to connect with the VA. In my mind, the VA was where I took my grandfather or where I would go and walk around and try to figure out how to get to all of these amazing resources. So I connected with a VA social worker and I said, "Help. I need a pipeline. I need a way to understand how to get these resources for these veterans and active duty that are coming into the ED."
Right.
And she said, "I'm happy to help you." And we started communicating, and I started learning more about the vast amount of resources and opportunity in VA. I ended up getting interested in a potential career change, and there became a position available in suicide prevention. And this was when I was in Texas, and I decided to take a leap and apply for the position.
Okay.
I ended up being a suicide prevention coordinator, which was a pretty easy shift after doing crisis in the emergency department, and just got in and really fell in love with working with veterans. I knew I wanted to work with veterans for a long time. I wasn't sure what that would look like, but I have a lot of veterans in my family, and the mission, and the drive was not really clear to me until I got in. So that's what brought me in, and I will say that the mission is definitely what keeps me here.
Awesome. What a great answer. And as a veteran myself, I appreciate that you came into the VA wanting to work with veterans. And let me caveat that really quick. I didn't mention this in the intro, but I know you guys are looking at Miss Silva and you're like, she's so young. But believe it or not, she's been a social worker for over 20 years, and she's been with the VA almost 15 years. It'd be 15 years this year. So, you look like you're 23, but you got a lot of good experience behind you. So thank you.
Thank you.
So my next question is, in your words, what do you feel makes working as a social worker at VA different from working in another healthcare organization or in the private sector?
That's a great question. Patience. Um, there are lots of things you have to learn when you come in. It's really learning a whole other landscape.
Right.
You are learning new terminology, you're learning new resources, and you're really learning what it means to serve a whole different population.
Right.
Military culture is really important, and it's really important to learn that service comes first. You have to be able to be someone who can take your knowledge and apply it in different ways. So you have to be patient with yourself, you have to be patient with veterans, and you also have to be deeply understanding. I think the other thing that is helpful is to be creative, to be able to really focus on creating plans and opportunities that are outside of the box
Right.
and are not what you might be thinking of in other arenas. So you might be the first one to try something. You might be the first person to raise an issue or a question.
Right.
And you're in a big government organization, you're in a big government system. And so you're going to really be maybe the first person to say, hey, I see something, an opportunity, and let me take it. And then I think just really being committed. You have to be committed to what you're doing. You have to be driven. You have to be ready to really commit to the values and the mission of VA. And um, public service is definitely different than working in the private sector. And I think that is one of the things that really keeps people here. It isn't the reason everyone comes, but I do think that it is the reason that people stay. So,
Right. Awesome. Awesome. So with that being said, I know we have a large audience that watches our program, and it may not be live. We have people that come back over throughout the week and even
mhm.
throughout the months that come back to these programs. And so there's someone out there that may be interested in going to school for social work. We may have someone out there who is currently in social work school, school to become a social worker, or we may have some entry level social workers out there. In your own words, what qualities do you feel someone needs to be a good social worker?
Okay. So to come into employment
Mhm.
for our organization as a social worker, you want to be master's prepared by an accredited school from Council on Social Work Education, that is CSWE.
Right.
So that is a really important criteria. So you're going to get that education first. You're going to want to pursue licensure, and then you're going to want to get some kind of experience. Now, your experience might be through a training, through a health professions training at one of our facilities, one of our healthcare systems. And we currently employ over 18,000 social workers in VHA. And we train over 1,500 health profession trainees a year. So we have a lot of opportunity for people to get that experience if you are in a school that allows training through an accredited affiliation agreement. So that is really those first basic criteria for employment. One other thing that I will say is that we are looking for people who are, really motivated to learn and motivated to come in and meet that mission and be flexible and learn new programs.
Right.
Another benefit to being in our organization is you can move around. You can move around geographically, you can move around programmatically. You can be employed in the homeless program. You can be employed in a program that serves veterans in the geriatric population. You can work in mental health. You can work in the community. You can serve in primary care. You can work in administration. So there's many opportunities. So having the flexibility along with that education, licensure, experience is really a critical component for coming in. And we offer a lot too. We offer mentorship. We offer coaching. We offer CEUs. You get all of your CEU requirements met for
Right.
free when you come in. So we look for a lot to get you in, and then we offer a lot once you're on board.
Awesome. So I want to kind of just piggyback off of that question and ask this next one. So someone who's out there that wants to work for VA. Now, we talked about the qualities of a candidate, but what qualifications does a candidate have to have? What type of education or licensures do you have to be that you have to be a social worker at VA?
Okay. So there is a citizenship requirement is in our qualification standard. There is also a requirement for that CSWE accredited school. And for someone who is seeking that information, the Council on Social Work Education has a website,
Okay.
and you can go to that website and you can look up the school that you are considering attending. And there is a list of accreditation. So you want to make sure your school is accredited by the Council on Social Work Education. And you do need to have that master's degree to be able to be eligible for employment.
Okay.
So those are very important components. And then we are going to be looking at your experience as you start to apply for a position. So, depending on the position that you're applying for, we would do a review of your education and that licensure and your past credentials. And then we would make a determination on your eligibility for the position.
Okay.
Another thing that we look at when someone does come in is potential opportunity for the programmatic assignment. So when we are looking at your packet, it's always a good thing to put everything you can in that cover letter,
Right.
in that resume or CV. Sometimes you might be applying for a position that has a lot of other candidates. So the more information that you can give us on that CV, that curriculum vitae, or that resume, in that cover letter, make sure you have a complete packet. That really helps us to know who you are on paper and help to get you to that interview process. That's a really important component, I believe, for our social workers, because we want to make sure that we get that opportunity to talk to you in person. And in person might just be over camera, but for us, I think we all know these days that that is really maybe not as good, but in our current world, we really like to be able to see people. So we do a lot of in person and a lot of video interviews.
Right. And I was smiling when you started talking about, cover letters and CVs and everything, because I feel like every guest that comes on this program, they spew those same lines out. And I tell our audience, even when I'm here by myself without a guest, how important it is that even if it's not required to have a cover letter
Mhm.
and put all of that stuff that you need to be able to get thrusted towards an interview in that cover letter, and make sure everything's in the resume. So, I smile when my guests come on, they talk about that stuff, because it's like, okay, look, you just hearing it over and over and over. So just make sure you have that cover letter. Make sure all that information is in your resume, because again, and you even mentioned this too, you even went a step further. There are sometimes hundreds of candidates that apply for one position,
Mhm.
and you have to make yourself, I know, it depends on the program office, but some hiring managers, they choose to hire 5 people. They choose to interview 5 people from each announcement. So you have to make yourself in the top 5 of hundreds of people. You have to make your application in the top 5. So I just want to bring that out and thank you for, mentioning that and kind of regurgitating that information, because it's important to make sure that your cover letter and resume is up to par.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. So my final question for today is, what do you feel is your absolute favorite thing about working here at VA?
Yeah. So I would definitely say the mission, hands down the mission. VA is committed to veterans, families, caregivers, survivors, um, committed to high reliability, committed to patient safety, committed to making our organization more more user friendly, focused on customer service, focused on diversity, equity, access, inclusion, really working hard to make sure that our veterans have the best experience possible. And we're in a very large organization, so that commitment has to be very solid and broad.
Right.
And knowing that the colleagues and the people that I work with share that same mission really just makes it a fun place to work, even when there are challenges. I just really enjoy and love my job.
Awesome. And we enjoy having you as a major part here at VA. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. So for those who may have joined in the middle of the interview or at some point after the interview started, we were talking to Jennifer Silva. She works as a program manager for the VA's National Office of Social Work. So the VA's National Social Work Program. She's a program manager. And we were talking today about careers as a social worker. So if you're interested in becoming a social worker, or if you're interested in becoming a social worker here at VA, if you missed part of the interview, we ask that you go back at some point today or some point tomorrow or next week and come back and watch the interview and get this great information that Ms. Silva shared with us today. So with that, again, before I leave, I want to say thank you, Ms. Silva, again for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And for that wraps up our broadcast for today. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on next week. Have a great day.